All right, everyone, this is Rabbi Son, hot take on news, pop culture, and religion. I'm the rabbi, he's the son. This is produced by Darshan Yeshiva, and we'd love you to be a student. Please join us. We need you. And speaking of schools and Jewish and a bunch of other things, we got something to talk about. Yeshiva universities, LGBTQ plus students, a lot going on here. Javon, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine.
And you wanted to talk about this, so lay it out for us, like as best as you understand it. What's going on? Because I've barely kept up with this.
Okay, so, legal battle started in 2021.
Right.
Over the schools, dismantling of, LGBTQ alliance type organization within the school. They banned the organization, and then the students sued because they believed that, it was discrimination. And then the school argued that, basically that due to it being a religious institution, that they didn't feel like New York State's anti-discrimination law applied to them. So then it was like, multiple, years-long court battle, multiple pauses in between. But, I'm just going to read the article.
And we have those articles up if anyone wants to look at them too.
Yeah. From the Jewish Press will be the first article. All right. Why you banned LGBTQ club, quote, it's antithetical to Torah values. In March 2025, Yeshiva University officially recognized a new LGBTQ students club, marking a major shift in its policy. This decision followed a prolonged legal and public battle that began in 2021. When students sued the university for refusing to recognize the Pride Alliance, an undergraduate LGBTQ student group, Yeshiva had argued that as a religious institution, it was exempt from New York City's human rights laws requiring equal treatment of student organizations. The case sparked national debate over balance between religious freedom and anti-discrimination protections. After years of litigation, including a temporary pause on Supreme Court level, the university ultimately opted to create a new university-run club that said would align with its Torah values while also addressing students' needs. So on March 20th, YU and its gay students announced their court-approved settlement. Quote, the parties have reached an agreement and the litigation is ending. Current students will be implementing their club to be known as, what's this word? The H.
I don't know where I'm reading from. Harani,
that will seek to support LGBTQ students and their allies and will operate in accordance with the approved guidance of Yeshiva University senior rabbis. The club will be run like other clubs on campus, all in the spirit of collaboration and mutual supportive campus culture. The Pride Alliance rejected the YU offer of the club, but one of the plaintiffs in the case, Donald, cannot say that last name, hailed the university's decision as a landmark moment for LGBTQ inclusion within Orthodox Judaism. Quote, this agreement confirms that Torah values and open LGBTQ identity are not inherently at odds, Donald wrote in a statement. Quote, it shows that Orthodox Jewish spaces can remain deeply committed to tradition while also affirming LGBTQ individuals. This marks a meaningful step forward for the entire modern Orthodox community. It took less than 2 months for YU leadership to realize that they probably had known all along. You can't have a gay and Orthodox Jewish Orthodox club unless you're willing to make big concessions. They weren't. Most of the Orthodox Jews probably agreed. Last Friday, YU issued the following press release. Dear members of Yeshiva University community, Yeshiva's undergrads, graduate schools are, of course, fundamentally religious, and that is why the settlement agreement that led to the creation of, what's that word again? Harani calls for...
We have a bunch of Okay.
That one.
Roche Yeshiva?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Head of the seminary, head of the school.
Okay. To determine the future of the club, which was designed to support students who are striving to live a fully committed, uncompromising, authentic,
Halakhic, I'm guessing. Okay.
life. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah. That's okay.
Life within our communities under traditional Orthodox auspices.
Auspices. I'd have to see what you're looking at. Auspices, yes.
Yeah, auspices. Recent actions. I'm just skip all that because I don't like. But you get the point. The point is gotten. Okay. So that was that.
Okay.
And I'm going to read another article from the Jewish Telegraphic Agency. That's titled "Yeshiva University rescinds approval for LGBT plus students club." Yeshiva University has revoked its recognition of a campus LGBTQ club just 2 months after approving it. The Modern Orthodox flagship is alleging that the club, Harani, right?
Yep.
Breached the terms of the settlement agreement and allowed for its formation. Harani's lawyers claim that the school may be the one breaching the settlement and says statements by school leaders threaten LGBT student safety. The club has vowed to keep operating. YU's decision to recognize Helene in March and settle related to legal battles that we, et cetera, we already talked about that, blah, blah, to avoid, recognition of LGBTQ in the school, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. At issue was Orthodox Judaism prohibition against homosexual relations. YU seeks to, God, why can I not know words?
Prohibition. I don't know what word am I looking at?
This one, the I.
Inculcate.
Yeah, God, right. Normal. To inculcate in its students the ideas that they can live fully committed Orthodox Jewish lives while participating in modern society, and the questions of welcoming LGBTQ students has strained that mission for years. Both the school and the leaders of Harani, who had previously led the Pride Alliance, depicted the March announcement as a resolution of the conflict, but within days of announcing the recognition of the LGBTQ group, Yeshiva University President Rabbi Ari Berman says that values espoused.
Espoused, is that maybe the word?
Yeah. Why did I add an espoused?
I don't know what I was looking at.
ESPO, yeah,
espoused, yes.
Yeah. Espoused by a typical pride club are antithetical to the school. Rabbi Herschel, I can't say that last name, who leads YU's rabbinical school, stated in March that he, quote, empathetically rejects the ideology, lifestyle, and behavior which the LGBT term represents. This week, the conflict appeared to heat up again. Lawyers for the school and the club have exchanged dueling letters, and the decision to officially disband Harani was announced Friday in an email to students from the Dean of Undergraduate Torah Studies, Rabbi Yusef Kalinsky. I feel like that's that name. In the email, Kalinsky echoed Berman's previous language, saying Pride Clubs is antithetical to Torah values of the university. There is no place for such a club at Yeshiva, the email said. As such, we are directing the student Office of Student Life to discontinue the club. Okay, off of that reading,
Okay.
So, what are your thoughts?
What are my thoughts?
Yeah, I
gotta switching it up. Normally, it's your thoughts. Okay, so the question of can a modern Orthodox yeshiva have an LGBTQ club? I think the question that's really being asked is, should the school have to fund an LGBTQ club, right? Because you could start like a social group for students. Like you think about here in the South, like there are these Christian evangelical colleges, right? There's one that's like an hour and a half away from here that wouldn't have, let's say, an LGBTQ club, right? But that doesn't stop there from being like an Instagram or like a WhatsApp group or whatever for those students, and they get together and hang out and do what they do. The question is whether the school should have to fund that, whether the donors and the fellow students should have to fund that. What I think would be interesting is if you polled the students there and you said, your budget for student activities is what, I don't know what it is, but some amount of money, because everyone pays like student activities fees when you join a college. So like your student activities fees are, I'm going to make up a number. Let's say it's $100. Okay. In order for us to have 20 student groups, would you be willing to pay whatever that is, an extra $5 for there to be an LGBTQ club? And if a survey of that found like, wow, Yeshiva University has like a lot of students who would be more than happy to pay the $5, then I would say the compromise would be, great, we will fund it through the $5 whatever thing, because then it's voluntary and you sort of get out of this question of who's funding what. Okay. That would be like if I was the dean, if I was the Rosh Yeshiva of Yeshiva University, that might be the way that I would approach it. Would be like, okay, if there is some split in the decision as far as whether an LGBTQ plus club violates Torah values, whatever they may mean by that, fine, then let's start some sort of voluntary dues system where everybody pays $5 or whatever it would cost for that. And you would just then have to have an administrator who would be willing to support it, because that's how clubs work. They always have to have someone who's willing to be the administrator. Now, the problem is, if you're the educator or the staff member who's willing to be the advisor for the LGBTQ club, that's really going to impact you as far as your career in, Orthodox Jewish life. So they'd be taking a huge risk, I think. So that would be my out. That'd be my way of getting out of the problem. Does Yeshiva University have to follow the human rights laws of New York? I don't know, because I don't know how the law is written and I'm not a lawyer. That's that. Should they have an LGBTQ club? I think that what is going to happen to Yeshiva University and to other schools like it is that more forms of education are going to ascend. And you will lose rabbinical students, because they already are, to the conservative, well, not so much the conservative movement in their case, but to Maharat, to Chovevei Torah, to all of these other, dare I call it, modern Orthodox, right, yeshivas. I think competition is a good thing. I think that it is good for people who want one particular type of education to get it, understanding that there are consequences to that education. Yeshiva University does way more than just Jewish education, right? You can study all kinds of stuff there. If you want whatever for lack of a better word, right-wing modern Orthodox education is, you should be allowed to have it. You should also have a seminary, a school, whatever, where you can have LGBTQ plus inclusion and halakhic commitment. I don't think that those things are unreasonable. So that's my take, is those LGBTQ students, I get the idea of fight for what you believe in. Okay. Find a way to have a compromised position and make it work. If not, reach out to the vast numbers of people who want to, see you join other programs. So that would be my take on that.
All right, my take is going to be, I'm siding with the students.
Okay.
Mainly because, let's strip it down to what it is. It's, for my personal first problem is the school literally arguing that since it's a religious institution that it doesn't have to, follow, state law in regards to discriminatory practices, I find that argument questionable.
Okay.
And I question the character of someone who would make that argument.
Okay.
That, it is kind of a weird argument to make.
So I'd be curious.
We're a religious school and we don't have to, that's a weird argument to make.
But like, does the Catholic school have to have such a thing, or a seminary for imams? Like, do they have to have that too? And I'd be curious to know like what they do, because it's the same question, right?
I mean, it is, and this way, these universities are gonna have to contend with,
right?
The fact that there are gonna be, for whatever reason, that LGBTQ students want to go to these universities.
That's kind of my question, honestly. Like, if I can be perfectly honest.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't get it either, but like, I'm just saying, like, maybe their families went to that school.
Could be.
And like, they just...
Their friends are going there, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. They live, I mean, it's New York. You live there. It's a good school. I mean, having a yeshiva university education is kind of a big deal.
Yeah. So maybe they want to go to a good school, have a good experience. And personally, I don't. If it's a student-run club, why does the university care?
Yeah, that's where I'm curious. Is like, is it funded by the school? Because that's when you get into.
And even so, those kids are paying those dues. It's not fair for them to have to pay those dues if you're not going to allow a club that they want to do. And maybe, that's like me paying for a service, and like, like that's like me, I don't know, renting a home.
Yeah.
And then like, I'm, paying such and such for such and such, and I never get that such and such.
Yeah. And
then it's like, so why am I even here?
Right.
If, you're catering to, one group of students, they can have 20,000 clubs.
Right.
But, the moment I want a club that, aligns with me and, my,
right.
me being who I am as a person.
Right.
And you're going to disagree with that. So stop charging me dues then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want that.
Yeah, I mean, I already feel like this is not a yeshiva university thing. I feel like student activities fees and all of these other ways that they nickel and dime you in colleges now are absurd. And so I would almost rather see a system where student activities is really relegated more to like student services. So like, do they have a healthcare plan of some kind that you have to pay for? Do they have a gym? Do they have like that kind of stuff? And then clubs, it's you're on your own. Like, it's all unofficial. You get together because like you think about like study groups, right? Like if you're in a class, you can start a study group for your class, but that doesn't mean that it's like the official study group of whatever this particular biochemistry class or whatever. It's just you informally created that. But I also get it, like student activities and student associations mean a lot to people, and not having that day on campus where you promote, like, here's the Black Student Union, here's Hillel, here's whatever. I can see both sides of it.
I just feel like, I don't think these are, false comparisons. I don't know if there are Black Jews who are going to
Yeshiva University. If there are, we'd love to meet you,
Yeah, and I don't, that would be like saying like, oh, they can't have, Black Student Union.
Right, right.
You're just making that argument like we're going to be freely discriminatory because, I just don't like the argument. But, okay, I'm, read another finished article. Okay. Firstly, YU stated that the club would only host educational and not purely social or recreational events. In addition, a statement made April 10th from, what was that word? Roche?
It means like the head.
Yeah, the head of the university. I'm going to say
that's fine.
Asserted that all club communications contain a disclaimer that the club is, quote, is for students who seek to fully maintain traditional halakhic
Jewish legal. That's the word, the phrase.
Halakhic standards of sexual morality. Lastly, Harani's letter argued that the statement by YU subject Harani to stricter rabbinic oversight compared to other clubs at YU. FAQ, where the university said that Rabbi, I can't even say this name, nor I can't say the first or last name, so I'm gonna, Rabbi YN Nunberg.
Do you want me to try?
Yeah, Rabbi
Yaakov Newberger.
Yeah, Newberg. I'm gonna say Newberger. One of YU's top officials is
yeah.
Halalic. Why don't
Halakik. Can we just have a blooper for this one of like Javon learns words?
For undergraduate student life and student clubs, and all activities have been and will be presented to him for consideration and determination. All three of these requirements, Harini alleges, would violate paragraph 3 K, which says that, quote, the club will not be required to submit any approval or oversight procedures that are not required for all student clubs. Now, granted, we're talking about this last portion because that's the portion I wanted to read.
Right.
Now, to answer your question, no other clubs on campus are having to be the
advised.
Same, advised, or have the microscope against them, and have to go to approval for the different events.
So then that solves that question, right? Because if you needed to have, some kind of educator or administrator be the advisor for the club, because that's the way it was when I was in college. Every club had to have an advisor. So if you don't have to have that, then Yeshiva University just kind of shot itself in the foot on that one.
Yeah, and then it's like how are you going to violate your own, your own rules? And you said, literally said, the club will not be required to submit any approval or oversight procedures that are not required by all student clubs. You are literally going against, your own, code of conduct or whatever ethics that you have as a university to target one specific student group.
That is called an administrative screw up. If you have a rule that basically says like, oh, it's a free for all, like we're not involved with student clubs, whatever, go for it, and then a student club comes up that you don't like, and it's like, oh no, actually, on second thought, we're gonna,
for the school to have lawyers and for them to, not go over that, handbook, code of conduct, whatever,
right,
and not, immediately be like, oh, hey, you actually can't have, this other guy, Newdenberger, that club, if that one club has to do it, every club has to do it. Right. They have to go to this person for approval on whatever they're doing. And firstly,
I'm surprised they didn't do that they didn't just say like, okay, you can have your club and then change the rules and then deny them later. You know what I mean?
And also I feel like, what else they say? Yeah, the fact that they had to put a disclaimer that this is for students who seek to fully maintain traditional halakhic standards. Halakhic standards. Yeah, the people don't understand it. Halakhic.
There you go.
Standards for more sexual morality. I mean, Erica says about every I find that just crazy. Like, what do you think they're talking about?
I'd like to look up the clubs at Yeshiva University just to see like.
But my point is, what do you think that they're talking about that is so racy? That's going to be like, this is like, and the fact that it can't even be a social club, like how are you going to have a student club that's not a social club?
Okay, so let's see. So I met these student clubs and associations. Let's see, event planning, resources, student government, student councils. So they have a student constitution, student life committee. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see just like a list of the student clubs. It could be that I just like don't know where to look here. Okay. Office of Student Life, maybe? Okay. Let's see. Student clubs and organizations. And then it brings me back to that same page.
Okay. Yeah, so
all right, so I'm not sure.
Point being that I feel like the university was trying to screw him over with the whole hey, you can have this club, but it can't be a social club.
Right.
It has to be purely educational. What club is purely educational and it's not social? The point of the club is like, are those the clubs?
Well, this is one set of them. So this is the Yeshiva University's School of Science and Health. And so it might be broken down by like the different schools within Yeshiva University, because I'm seeing like here at the School of Science and Health, they have like the Student Association, Chinese Student Union, Indian students, African students, cybersecurity, I guess is what this is. And then they have them based on like what you're studying. So speech language, occupational therapy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so it might just be on a case by case basis. I'm wondering if it's here's a private website. This is called Campus Groups. Okay. So this like has all of the different groups. So Harini was the name of the one. I'm going to see if I can pull them up here.
I'm probably not even on there anymore.
Yeah, I mean, they might not be. But this is also like, oh, nope, here we go. This is also like not Yeshiva University's website. So here we go. Harini's website. Okay, you have to like log in to see it. Okay. Yeah, and then it goes back to this. So yeah, okay. So I don't know if this is part of the website or what it is. But yeah, there's like 226 clubs listed. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even want to try and figure out what half this is. Some of it, I mean, I could probably guess, like there's, an Aliyah club. I assume that is what it is. But then they also have a club that looks like the AMC movie logo, anime and manga, astronomy.
What does that got to do with Torah?
Well, okay, but that's the thing, though, is that Yeshiva University is more than just the religious, like, school.
Exactly, so that's my point. That's my point. Yeah. You have an anime club, that'd be...
Anime can be pretty racy. Like,
exactly. Like, so the overarching thing is...
Okay, the Broadway club, like, come on. Come on.
Exactly. That's the point. Right. That's the point. I feel like this... the university is being discriminatory, granted that, yes, you kids, you don't have to go to this, like, Orthodox, university, but there could, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately at the end of the day, the question is whether Yeshiva University would have to have a club that would be an issue because they have like the seminary within Yeshiva University, right? They have like the Jewish studies program within it. But yeah, so now this is.
But my thing, more important, my point is how are you a Jewish educational institution and you're teaching, the Torah, and someone interprets the Torah differently than you, mm-hmm. and then you're having a problem with it?
Well,
like, isn't that I just found that completely, antithetical, right. To being Jewish in the first place.
Hey,
I said it.
You said it. This is what's happening in a lot of religions, not just Judaism. There is a hollowing out of the middle. So you have sort of non-practicing, completely secularized, kind of culturally Jewish, but like barely. And then you have sort of within that group, people who moved to Israel, and like that is how they express being Jewish. They want as deep of a cultural Judaism as they can. And so for them, that's national at that point. The hollowing out of sort of Reform and conservative Judaism, and then a right wing of Orthodoxy that is being pushed further and further and further. And in response to modernity. And so the only thing that is growing Orthodoxy is the number of people that would have felt comfortable in a very diverse middle ground now saying, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't have, whatever their problem is, right? Whatever thing they find in sort of the soup that is like Reform, conservative, left-leaning Orthodoxy or open Orthodoxy or whatever Jewish renewal, like they can't find themselves comfortable in that because of an issue, let's say. LGBTQ plus, egalitarianism, whatever, politics. I heard a study that said that Orthodox Jews feel more of a connection in America, feel more of a connection to evangelicals than they do progressive Jews. And just so that no one thinks I'm being a hater, progressive Jews feel more of a connection to non-religious people and to liberal Protestants than they do Orthodox Jews. So that means that whole middle is being completely hollowed out. And that's a problem. And so there you go. So Yeshiva University, in order to capture the largest pool it can, is going to have to keep moving to the right. And maybe somehow in the middle, you'll grow open orthodoxy. Maybe. I think those people used to be called conservative back in the day, but now conservative Judaism has moved so far to the left, whatever that means, that, yeah.
I mean, but that's like...
It's just burning the candle from both ends, or whatever metaphor you want to use.
I feel like in the new age, like, I get that you want to, like, keep up these, like, practices,
mm-hmm.
but you have to modernize. Like,
sure.
You modernize, or, you're lost in the sauce.
Right.
Like,
right.
And I personally, like, my whole thing is still stuck on, like, your educational, university, and you have a separate group of students who are interpreting the Torah differently than you,
mm-hmm.
and you're having a problem with that so bad
right.
that you're actively attacking them.
Right.
Like, I find that questionable. At this point, fire everyone in charge and get a whole new batch of people. Because if you can't, in a world where, in a religion where, debating
mm-hmm.
the religious text
mm-hmm.
is like such a fundamental part of it, if you can't handle that, I think you're in the wrong religion.
Listen, that was good. I'm leaving it at that.
Leave it at that.
Thank you to our sponsors at Darshan Yeshiva for making this content possible. Darshan Yeshiva provides beginner-level online Jewish learning, including the very popular Conversion to Judaism program, with sponsoring rabbis and students all over the world. Start your Jewish journey any place, anywhere, and anytime with our conservative, reform, reconstructionist, Jewish renewal, humanistic, and post-denominational rabbi mentors. Become the Jew you always wanted to be with Darshan Yeshiva.